Hey everyone, this is Nick O'Malley with MassLive.com, helping ring in the new Boston Red Sox season as we've got Jen McCaffrey and Chris Smith down in spring training right now, figuring out what's up with this new team and some new faces like JD Martinez. But as we're getting ready for the season, we're actually going to take a look and see what some old faces are up to across the majors by taking a look at a little Where Are They Now series with some former Boston Red Sox who are still playing baseball across the majors, and we have a few guys across the world. And we're actually going to start by looking at a guy who's playing over in Japan. That's Daisuke Matsuzaka, who's, still playing baseball. He hasn't been with the Red Sox since 2012, but he's still around pitching. He's pitching for the Junichi Dragons right now. He had a few stops in the majors, a stop with the Cleveland Indians and their camp, and then a stop with the Mets, where he actually he had his last major league action and had a little bit of success, but ultimately after 2014 ended up going back to Japan, which is where he had his original success as a professional pitcher. Came up through there and came to the Red Sox in 2007, and that's when the whole Jarrod Ball business came down. And he had some success for a while, one really good season with the Red Sox, but towards the end, fans got tired of him taking forever to pitch and never throwing strikes, so that ended up not working out. But he's having some late career success in his late 30s now in Japan, so it's good to see him still being active. Another guy that the Red Sox let go, this time via trade, was Will Middlebrooks. And around the 2013-2014 season, he came up as a pretty good prospect in the Red Sox system. He had a decent pop in his bat, and he came up as a guy that a lot of people thought could be the solution at third base, and it didn't turn out that way. Towards the end of his tenure, he was really ended up being inconsistent at the plate. He still had the power at times, but really couldn't have a consistent approach at the plate. And there was also that weird sequence of events where he ended up having a relationship with the NESN sideline reporter Jenny Dell, and then she ended up working for a different team, and then he got traded, and they ended up getting married, so that ended up working out for them. Middlebrooks is still kicking around. He was last with the Rangers last season. He ended up spending a bunch of time in the minors. He hasn't been a consistent major league contributor and is with the Phillies right now. He has a minor league contract and is a non-roster invite, so let's see how that goes for him. Hopefully Will Middlebrooks can find that success he never had in Boston. Guy that did have some success in Boston but ended up not working out was Adrian Gonzalez. When the Red Sox traded for him from the Padres, he was an all-star in his first season, but that second season after that big Red Sox collapse in Terry Francona's final year, that was the Bobby Valentine year, that was a big disaster for the Red Sox, and he was part of that big fire sale that sent him and Carl Crawford out to the Dodgers, and he ended up having a lot of success with the Dodgers. He ended up posting some solid seasons, and he actually never was quite as good as he was with the Red Sox in his first season, but they liked him out there, so that ended up working out for him. In the last year of his deal, the Dodgers ended up trading him to the Braves this offseason. It's part of a weird sequence of events. So we got traded from the Mets to the Braves, we got traded from the Dodgers to the Braves, and then the Braves designated him for assignment and essentially just cut him, and then the Mets picked him up on a veteran's minimum salary. So the Braves are still paying him like $22 million a year for the season, and the Mets are paying him a veteran's minimum. So weird way to end up playing a year of baseball, but hey, Adrian Gonzalez is getting paid, and we'll see if he has a good year with the Mets this year. A guy that did not have success after leaving Boston was Felix Doubront. For a few years, he was the number 4, number 5 starter for the Red Sox and was a kind of inconsistent pitcher where he would pitch 5 or 6 innings, and either you would get 1 or 2 runs given up or he'd give up 5. And after a while, he just never really entrenched himself as a guy the Red Sox could count on in the rotation, and so they ended up trading him to the Cubs in the 2014 season, and his last MLB stint was with the Oakland Athletics, and was with them as recently as 2017, and was never really healthy. He last appeared in an MLB game in 2015, and he didn't really figure it out, so he ended up making the jump over to Korea, which is ways away from the majors, but he's over playing for the Lotte Giants over there in the KBO. So he's gone a long way since leaving the Red Sox. And a guy that Red Sox fans really wish they could have just traded away to the other side of the planet and just never see again was Pablo Sandoval, who the Red Sox paid a lot of money for, but he ended up turning out to be one of the worst contracts in Red Sox history. He came in as the guy the Red Sox want to be an everyday third baseman, and he just, as soon as he got to Boston, just never was consistent at the plate or on the field, and had issues with his weight, and just turned into an overall disaster to the point where the Red Sox just let him go during the 2017 season. He ended up going back to the San Francisco Giants, which is the team he had his 2 All-Star appearances with to start his career. And they're the team that picked him back up. And he had a weird arc with the Giants. He had some initial success when they picked him up partway through the season. But then he just plummeted and had a stretch where he was like either 38 at-bats or games where he just couldn't get a hit. And he actually ended the season on a high note personally, but not for the Giants. He ended up hitting a walk-off home run in the last game of the season, which is great. Normally you get a win, but that win made it so the Giants didn't get the number 1 pick of the draft. So sometimes it just seems like Pablo Sandoval can just do nothing right, but we'll see if he can turn it around in his 30s with his original team. And one guy that really never really turned around in the majors was Willy Mo Pena. The Red Sox traded for him in 2006, and he was just the stereotypical, just big lumbering outfielder with a big heavy bat, and would hit moonballs. But that was the only way he made contact, because Willy Mo Pena was that stereotypical guy that hit monster home runs but didn't consistently make contact. He was in Boston for about a year and a half, and a lot of fans loved him because he just hit these monster home runs, and they were waiting for him to put it together on the plate and hit consistently. But that never really happened, and so the team traded him in 2007, and he had a few other stops in the majors, but he ended up having a lot of success when he went to go play in Japan in 2011. He's played for a few teams over there, the Oryx Buffaloes, the Rakuten Golden Eagles. He played last season for the Lotte Mariners. But that was after, to start 2017, he actually came back to the majors somewhat, as he made an appearance in spring training for the Cleveland Indians. Now, they ultimately cut him at the end of spring training, and so he ended up going back to play in Japan in 2017. We don't know what he's up to in 2018. He's getting up there in his late 30s now, but there have been reports that Willy Mo Pena could come back for one more season for the Mariners, which would be fun to see, because the one thing that's always fun is just getting intermittent clips of big Willy Mo Pena out in Japan, just because when he's for much of his career over there, he's been hitting mid 250s, 270s, but he just hits these monster home runs, and it's just awesome to see this guy you used to see in a Red Sox uniform just hit this moonshot, and Japanese announcers go crazy and fans go wild. So the more highlights we get of that, the better. And one guy that probably should have worked out for the Red Sox is Travis Shaw, who the Red Sox traded to the Brewers in 2016. He was a guy that the Red Sox, for a while, seemed like he would be the solution at third base, but then they ended up bringing in Pablo Sandoval, and really, in retrospect, they probably should have kept Travis Shaw, because the past few seasons they've struggled to field good corner infielders, but the moment they traded Travis Shaw, he slotted in right away and proved he could be an everyday starting corner infielder for the Brewers. He's been batting high 270s and has been a consistent everyday starter for them, so the Red Sox gave up on him a little too early. He only played a couple seasons in Boston before they let him go. I guess they were trying to sell high on him, but no, they just let a starter go, and he's back with the Brewers this year, and Red Sox fans will be able to watch him continue to have success. Well, maybe his track record has shown that he's a guy that's going to stick around for a while. And one guy that did stick around for a while with the Red Sox is Junichi Tazawa, who is a solid setup man for the Red Sox. For a while, he was a 7th, 8th inning guy for Boston. He was a solid guy there, but they ended up letting him hit free agency after 2016, and that was probably a good move for the team. Tazawa was kind of same role, like sometimes a setup guy, sometimes 7th inning guy, and he did not retain the success he had in Boston. He had an ERA about in the fives and never really was a sort of guy you can bring in as the guy to put out fires in late inning situations. He had a real rough season for the Marlins, and the Marlins are looking rough this year. They traded all their good players this year, and really a lot of their talent is playing elsewhere. So they're probably going to have to rely on Tazawa again to have a major role in that bullpen and see if he can have a bounce-back year. But for now, the Red Sox seem to have made the right move and letting him walk in free agency. And a guy that Red Sox again did let hit free agency, and it was probably a good thing, was catcher Jarrod Saltalamacchia. He was the guy who had a big role as a catcher for the Red Sox, and they ended up letting him go. And since then, he never really caught on with a team. And he was with the Tigers for a bit. He was with the Marlins, and he last played for the Blue Jays in 2017. But they let him go partway through the season, and he was actually back in Boston in 2017. He was in the NESN broadcast booth helping call games with the NESN team there, and he hasn't signed with a team for 2018 yet, but he was at the MLB-sponsored Veterans Spring Training Camp. That's sort of prep camp for veterans who have yet to sign. It's also known as Camp Jobless. And so he's been spotted there, and we'll see whether he manages to land a spot with the MLB team this year. If not, there's a spot for him in the NESN booth if they need someone to fill in. And our last player that we're checking in with is probably the deepest cut of them, but probably the most interesting case is Lars Anderson, who's a former Red Sox first base prospect, who had some decent. He was a pretty highly touted guy and was considered as a guy the Red Sox could lean on in the future, but he ended up not working out, and so he only appeared with the Red Sox, and they let him go, and he ended up playing in Japan in 2017 and having a decent run there, and he is currently playing down in Australia with the Sydney Blue Sox. And if you're ever interested in what it's like for a former Red Sox minor leaguer to go on and play on the other side of the planet, he actually has a running blog on Baseball Prospectus where he kind of kept tabs on what he was up to while playing in Japan for the Kochi Fighting Dogs and what he's doing with the Sydney Blue Sox now. So you can find that on Baseball Prospectus. And so those are the 10 guys we really wanted to point out. We have a longer list of guys of checking in with them and seeing what they're up to now on MassLive.com/Red Sox. And on Monday, we're actually going to check in with some retired guys to see what they're up to in the majors. Some interesting cases, like, did you know that Mike Greenwell owns a family fun center with go-karts down in Florida? Did you know that Kevin Youkilis owns a craft brewery? Or did you know that Mo Vaughn now has his own clothing line of big and tall men's clothes? So we're going to check in with that on Monday, but until then, thanks for tuning in, folks, and we'll have more Red Sox coverage throughout the season as we get ready to see what the current Red Sox are actually going to do and whether or not they're actually going to sign J.D. Martinez and then announce that. But for now, thanks for tuning in, folks.